Welcome to the Carnivore Family channel, where every meal is a meaty meal. Today we are going over phase 2 of the Carnivore Family transformation. Now that you have formed new habits surrounding meals by making meat the star and kicking all of the big carbs and sugars to the curb, I'm going to show you how to start dialing in on the minor carbs and sugars in your family's menu. This is not going to feel as dramatic as the first phase did, but you will see even greater rewards. Before we get started, do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button and ring that bell. When we're done here, check out Carnivore Family on social media and our store, links in the description box below.
Welcome to the Carnivore Family. We don't eat plants or fruit from a tree.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Reese, and this is my husband Louie, and we have 8 carnivore kids. Nearly 2 years ago, we made a significant shift from the standard American diet to the carnivore way of eating. We have experienced remarkable weight loss and health benefits, not to mention breaking lifelong unhealthy food habits. When we committed to this path for our family, my husband and I opted for a gradual transition for our kids compared to ourselves. Reflecting on that initial year, we realized we broke it down into 4 key phases. Phase 1, major carbs. Phase 2, minor carbs. Phase 3, processed foods. And phase 4, refining the system. Today, I'm going to do a deep dive into phase 2 of this journey. If you want to hear an overview of all the phases, check out my video here for the beginning of this series. In phase 1, we eliminated all of the big, obvious carby foods and focused on making meat the star of our kids' meals. We spent several months not fussing about sauces, condiments, and dairy consumption, and focused on building new habits as a family. As we started to get the hang of planning, shopping, and cooking animal-based meals that our kids enjoyed, we were able to start dialing in on the minor carbs, the sneakier carbs that we had been ignoring, as well as the non-animal-based foods that we were still consuming. Like phase 1, the kids spent about 3 months in phase 2. So take time to make this as gradual of a change as your family needs to make it a permanent lifestyle change. This will likely take longer the more kids that are in your household, because you are essentially herding cats, trying to get them all facing the same direction at the same time without too much fuss. The goal is to make this a unifying family adventure, not a chore. I also want to be continually clear from the start that I'm not telling people what they should do with their families, but if you are trying to figure out how to make a change to a carnivore way of eating for your family, then I'm here to help you make a game plan. Let's begin. Phase 2 is the minor carb dial down. This means that we now have the bandwidth to focus on the sneaky carbs and sugars. We are now going to start looking closer at every item in our grocery cart that isn't animal-based. This means the sauces, condiments, and produce that we were previously ignoring are now going to get our attention. Resist the temptation to start switching out the original versions of sauces and condiments with sugar-free versions just because they are low-carb or carb-free. Sugar-free is synonymous with artificial sweeteners. These are listed under a ton of names like sucralose, acesulfame potassium, and aspartame. There are many health concerns with these products, but above all else, they are not real food. They are products produced in a laboratory that are sweet to our taste buds, but our bodies are not equipped to process them properly. They are not food for any living creature. I'm also going to encourage you to resist the urge to switch to plant-based sugar sources. Stevia, monk fruit, and sugar alcohols, for example. They might be somewhat less refined, and some are lower in carbs and sugar, but they are still sweet to your taste buds and will continue to trigger sugar cravings. Just because they are isolated from nature does not automatically make them healthy, and it definitely does not automatically make them food for humans. And then there is honey. Is it technically an animal product? Sure. Have humans been consuming it for centuries? Yes. Is it available in a mostly natural and unrefined state? Yes. Does it contain vital nutrients for the body? No. It's just sugar. To be more specific, it's a mixture of fructose and glucose, and the body does not distinguish between the sources of those sugar. Spoiler alert, we're going to be having this conversation again in a minute when we talk about fruit. What this all boils down to is focusing on our goal to be a carnivore family, to kill the sugar addiction and to kick the sweet tooth completely, not replace it with a different kind of sweet tooth. Throughout human history, most people would have only consumed honey occasionally throughout the year, if at all. By making honey commercially available year-round and practically worldwide, we have talked ourselves into justifying overconsumption of it. Like many other natural foods, carnivore is about prioritizing healthy, nutrient-dense food above all others, and not about finding ways to make sugar seem healthy. Along these same lines, labels that say keto-friendly and low-carb should generally be red flags, not enticements. Mentally start to equate those terms with artificial ingredients and a mashup of non-food ingredients. The popularity of keto diets has acquired the attention of the food industry, and they have been more than happy to create new products to fill their shelves with the illusion of health. There are exceptions out there, but read labels close. Okay, on that note, we're going to address fruit. Phase 2 is where we weeded the fruits and vegetables out of our lives. You want to get the strangest looks? Tell people your family doesn't eat any fruits and vegetables. But why no fruit? It grows on trees, it's a whole food, it's good sugar, right? Well, no. Sugar is sugar to the body. Fruit has fructose in it, and the body doesn't care what package it comes in. Now, fruit will generally come in a less toxic package than a Pop-Tart or gummy bears, but the reality is sugar is sugar. Let's also think about a couple of other points. First, fruit used to only be available seasonally and in local varieties. Before agriculture became so commercialized, a person would have only consumed what they could harvest on their own or trade for. If you've never picked berries, you cannot appreciate how tedious that is and how much work it would have taken to make a single pie. The second point I'll make before laying off the fruit is that most modern fruits and vegetables do not resemble their original forms. They have been bred over centuries to be sweeter, larger, prettier, and hardier than they naturally were. Even more recently, genetic modification has been introduced, changing our plants at the DNA level. Do we have clear studies on how this will affect us? No. Is anyone doing detailed scientific studies to evaluate the long-term effects on us? Also no. So take that information and do what you will with it. What we do know about fruit is that most are much sweeter than they were naturally. Before domestication, the flesh of bananas was pitted with seeds and almost inedible. Watermelon had thick rinds, and the thin, tasteless white layer between the rind and the sweet red interior comprised most of the interior. Don't get me started on apples. Where I grew up in rural Idaho, there was a small apple orchard you could hike to that was over 120 years old. It had been planted by a family that had settled there in the 1800s and was hidden deep in the mountains, untouched by any modern farming techniques. The apples were the size of golf balls and very tart, like turn your mouth inside out tart. Vegetables have also been given the most amazing public image over the last half century. Historically, they were filler foods that could be gathered or grown to supplement a family's plate and help stave off hunger. But they are not nutritionally necessary. Do they contain some great nutrients? Sure. But how bioavailable they are to humans is really questionable. They also produce plant toxins, anti-nutrients, and phytochemicals, which are basically protective chemicals that our bodies have to filter out. They can bring on an immune response to the body and cause disease and inflammation. Oxalates in particular have been getting a lot of attention lately. They are more concentrated in foods like spinach and almonds and many other supposed health foods. Oxalate buildup is associated with a number of health conditions, and I'm going to add some links in the description for more detailed information on this topic. So my overall point is to keep in mind that commercialization and globalization has made nearly every produce in existence available relatively year-round, in abundance, and in an unnaturally palatable form. So back to the practical question. How do we weed out the sauces, condiments, and produce? Slowly. When we would run out, I would just slowly replenish, and then as they got used to not having something around as much, I would just stop buying it. This gave it a staggered and gradual feel for the kids. But this wasn't just about what we were giving up, but sincerely focusing on what we were getting. We tried new meats and cheeses. We played around with more carnivore-friendly options like sour cream, butter, and cream cheese. We did put some limits on the dairy like cottage cheese, yogurt, and cheeses, mostly because we didn't want the kids filling up on them. We spent time teaching the kids how to cook their favorite foods, and they started to take a lot of pride and ownership in their meals. We learned to make our own jerky, tried out carnivore pizza recipes and chaffles. We made Kelly Hogan's Oopsie Cake and tried Dr. Kiltz's carnivore ice cream. As always, don't let the inability to be perfect keep you from trying to make a change for your family. You decide the pace and the path that works best for you. When you are ready, check out my video here for a deep dive into phase 3. Now to wrap this up, I want you to know that I'm giving away my Carnivore Family Grocery Guide to help you get started. Check out the description box for details. Leave a comment and tell me how old your carnivore kids are. And if you found any part of this video helpful, please consider sharing it with a friend or on social media. Smash that like button to show the algorithm you care, and feel free to email me questions at carnivorefam@gmail.com. And remember, when all else fails, go eat a steak.
Never gonna stop. This aroma travels far. I get more happy.